whenever they can. Good evening. My name is Leo Davelman, and welcome to the Restore Our Board's second virtual Meet the Candidates event. Once again, we have Aldo Petruno, Kathleen Amster, Christina Rosado, and Deborah Venedum here with us today. Since we did the introductions and backgrounds on each of the candidates at the last meeting, we're going to jump right into Q&A tonight, as you can watch the previous meeting via the Updates tab on the MarlboroParentsForChange.com website. But if any of you are joining for the first time and have any questions about the candidates' backgrounds, please feel free to submit them here, and we will get them answered in the process of this meeting, okay? So before we start the audience Q&A, just a few housekeeping notes to share. I have to do the disclaimer because Kathleen is an active serving member of the board, so these are only the candidates' personal opinions and does not represent any board they might currently sit on. These candidates are not being supported by any political party and not affiliated with any political groups. If you guys would like to ask a question, please enter it into the chat area located to the right of this meeting. So I will be monitoring those, and I will be grabbing questions from there and posing them to our panel members here today. I will pick out the questions that pertain directly to the Marlboro Board of Education, our students, and the school district. So we know there's a lot of things going on in this country, in this state, in this town, but these candidates are only running to make positive changes for the children of Marlboro. They're running specifically for our Board of Education. So ideally, let's try to keep the questions to just that, okay? So with that in mind, I have the first question, and I'll jump right to it. AC would like to know how the candidates plan to get more parents and residents involved with the school issues. Would like to take that? All right, Kathleen, go ahead.
So thank you for the question, AC. I mean, how do we plan to get more parents, residents involved? I mean, I think the first thing, I know this is kind of like an easy out, is communication. Without open lines of communication between the board and the citizens of Marlboro, whether they be taxpayers or parents, I think everything, without a strong foundation of communication, everything else kind of goes by the wayside. So how we go about doing that, we've all, the four of us run on this, is nobody likes this word, transparency, but we need to be really open about what we're doing and how we're doing it and why we're doing it. And I know I can speak for the four of us in saying we only want what's best for all of the children of Marlboro. So I think the best way to get parents and residents involved is to have that open line of communication where there's open dialogue, where there's respect. That's the utmost importance.
Just to piggyback on what Kathleen was saying, having the ability to speak candidly at a board meeting, I think would allow more of an open communication realm. Many parents feel that there's a time constraint of the 3 minutes, which I understand if you had 50, 75, 100 people looking to speak up at every meeting, you would have a time constraint. But I feel that we should allow a dialogue to occur at our board meetings between the board and parents in the community, so that there could be a natural problem solving and communication open, and people can feel that they're heard and not have to wait, 30 minutes, 45 minutes for a response. I think that would also help get parents more involved, because they'll feel like they're heard, and everybody wants to feel heard in every facet of life.
Thank you, Christina. Folks, so as you're thinking about your questions, please obviously listen to the answers the candidates are giving, try to piggyback off of that. Look at each other's questions. You could see the questions that others are asking in the chat. And if we should run low, there's also questions from the previous meeting that we could use as well. So right now I have a question from Elliot C. What do you feel are the success and failures from the start of COVID till today in regards to the entire K-8 Marlboro school system? And how would you have done things if you were on the board? Kathleen, why don't you start us off again?
So I was on the board. I am on the board during this time, and things revolving around COVID, that is considered day-to-day operations. Day-to-day operation is under the auspice of the superintendent. The board does not control those decisions. So whether or not the schools remained open, whether or not they closed, whether there were cohorts, that was all considered day-to-day operations. And no board in the state of New Jersey controls that. So if you want to know what the role of a board is we're a policy-making body. We are supposed to supervise the superintendent, make policy. We don't, again, day-to-day operations, not our thing. So I don't know what I could have done or the board could have done personally. You know, we take the guidance of the superintendent and we go with that. So again, there's nothing a board can do in response to COVID as a whole. The board does not make those decisions.
Thank you for shining light on how that actually works and looks from the inside. Anybody have anything to add? Aldo, go ahead. Aldo, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. Yeah, I just wanted to throw in too that, I mean, some of the, not speaking, obviously not being a board member, and, I know that obviously they don't see the day-to-day activity, operations, but just to, shed some light on the successes, I gotta say that, I can't even imagine what it must be like to be a teacher or a nurse or a janitor or anyone that works in those buildings, the principals, Lord only knows the amount of stress that they must be under on a daily basis. And, they're dealing with our children, they're dealing with parents, they're dealing with, their administrators. And I would have to say, I got to be honest, this year, everyone's been absolutely amazing. I had my first interaction with the school nurse at my daughter's school about 2 weeks ago. And I think I shared this on social media, but it was actually when I went into the nurse's office, I'm sorry, just real quick, like a real quick story. It brought me back because I remember being in Asher Homes myself as a child. And, when I walked into the nurse's office, it was like, it kind of brought me back to when I was a kid. And talking to the nurse, she was absolutely like compassionate and caring. And I mean, when I left that office, I was like, man, it was such a great feeling to know that that was the person that would be taking care of my kids if they ever didn't feel good during the day. I had no previous interactions with her. I got to be honest. I feel I don't even remember her name because it was such a quick interaction. It was only a couple-minute conversation, but she was awesome. I mean, she gave me her email address. She said, if you have any concerns, reach out to me. And it was amazing. Likewise, the conversations that I had with my kids' teachers this year via email, all really, really awesome. It seems like everybody, they're really putting 100% in, and it shows. So, that being said, I think that, Marlboro is very lucky to have the staff that they do. I mean, it's incredible, that being said, last year when schools first started, no fault of the teachers, I thought that the first day, I was actually shocked at how, the technology issues that were taking place, and, teachers were talking and there was echoes, and, one daughter couldn't hear anything. The other daughter was hearing echoes. One, didn't have video. And you know what, I know it was the first day, but there was so many issues that I felt, and it wasn't the teacher's fault. I felt like it was a technology issue that really should have been worked on over the summer. So I think that was something that probably should have, it wasn't I don't want to say it's a failure, but it definitely wasn't, I don't think at the, the very best that it could have been, having had all summer to prepare for it. Those are just two of my experiences, both on the high side and the low side. And again, that's not as a board member, that was more as a parent. But those were my experiences. But either way, definitely the staff, the nurses, the teachers, 100%. Those are the backbone of the schools right there. And we are very lucky to have them.
Thank you, Aldo. So hopefully this explanation or expansion on the original answer satisfied the original questioner. So Kathleen, I'm sorry, before I go to you, one thing from me personally, the candidates didn't ask me for this, but this isn't Facebook, right? These folks are here to talk to you. They're putting themselves out there to answer your questions. You certainly don't have to do this, but I would like to ask that if you could at least put a first name out there when you're asking a question, when you're posing a question to this board. It's just a matter of politeness and courtesy for me. So that was my quick request. Now, Kathleen, I think you want to expand on what you originally said. Unmute yourself though, please.
I'm gonna be kind right now. Board of Education are not leaders. We're elected officials. So we don't lead the district. Again, you should click on the link that Deborah sent. I am not defensive. I can't take any of the success or failures. That's on the administration. That's what they get paid for. So that's that. I mean, I to be honest with you, I am a little defensive now because I'm taking it personally. I've been on the board 2+ years by myself, fighting this district, trying to get things to change, and I can't even get a second to get a motion passed. So if Elliot, if you want to have this discussion offline, I'm all for that. But the Board of Ed, I'm speaking for myself. I am not a leader on the Board of Education. That's Dr. Hibbs, that's Mr. Malone, and that's Dr. Blair. They are the 3 leadership positions in this district. If there are successes and failures, it is on them. The Board of Education is a policy-making body, period. That's the definition from the NJSBA.
Okay, thank you, Kathleen. If there's no one else who wants to add anything on this topic, I think there's another question from AC, and the question is, do you feel like the schools are keeping the children up to par on their grade levels with the curriculums being taught, and how can you impact that? And Angie is the name of the person under AC.
Hi, Angie. Thank you for your question. So that was a concern that I had as a parent. Over the summer, I had reached out to Mr. Balone, inquiring about the statistics, because I knew that last year my son was only in 1st grade and he was doing really well on all of his paper and pencil assessments, 95s, 100. So I was expecting the end of year assessment to kind of reflect that kind of learning. And then he got a 55 on it. And so when speaking to other friends in other classes in this other schools within the district, a lot of parents were expressing similar concerns. So I felt that it was pertinent for me. I'm a data person. I need data to kind of inquire about that. And what I did see, I referenced this the last time in the last Zoom call that we had. But what I did see, what I received from him in terms of the math end of year assessments, kindergarten and 1st grade didn't show that many students that were not meeting the standards. However, once you got to 2nd grade to 8th, you were seeing anywhere from 24% to almost up to 40% below the standards. The same was true and reflective in the ELA standards. How many children were meeting or not meeting the standards. So it seemed like come around 2nd grade, there was starting to be a lot of disconnect between what was going on in the classroom, what they were being assessed on, and how well they were meeting the standards. So it is a concern. Whether it be that the assessments that they're picking are not basically measuring what they're teaching. I'm not sure if that's where the disconnect is, or if we're not teaching to the standards. That's another concern of mine. But that's definitely something that needs to be addressed. And there is really, in my opinion, no amount of online remote program that they can purchase that's going to rectify those problems. That's something that's going to they need to really assess what curriculum they're using in reading and writing and math workshops in the primary grades, like the K1 and 2, and then reassess 3 to 5 as well as 6 to 8, because it's not meeting the standards according to the data that I was provided. So that is a concern. And I definitely feel like a lot of small group instruction should be happening in person in the classrooms to remediate, not RAS kids and not IXL. That's not going to bridge the gap that we have currently, in my estimation. Thank you for your question. I hope that answered it.
Thank you very much, Christina. So when we were having the previous discussion, there was a question that I missed, and I apologize. The question from user iPhone. What are the most prevalent concerns that you as candidates are hearing from parents and community members in regard to our schools? That's probably a rich question. So I invite all of you guys to share what you're hearing. Go ahead, Deb.
Hi. Yeah, so I've been walking around a lot of the developments. I've been meeting people at certain shops in town. I think obviously the first thing is to catch the kids up on curriculum. And again, we don't set the curriculum, we just vote to approve the curriculum. Again, it's a policy thing. Christina, obviously with her education background, really truly understands it. I think the other thing is sort of how the districts spend their money. Well, it's been known we've been going through a 5-year phase of state budget cuts. What has truly saved us in the last year and a half has been the ESSER funding. So we want to make sure parents are concerned where the money is being spent. Is it being spent on education, technology? Where's the transparency? The last thing that a lot of parents I've spoken to, and maybe some of my fellow candidates can jump in, is sort of building a relationship between the Board of Education, the administration, and the community. There's a lot of people who do not come forward, who don't attend meetings because they're scared of either getting yelled at, getting their hands slapped, or even that would affect their child in school. And I'm not saying that happens. I'm just saying it might be a perception versus reality thing, but everyone wants the best for our kids. I think that's what it comes down to.
Aldo, what are you hearing? Christina, Kathleen? Aldo, you're on mute.
Thanks, Leah. Yeah, the biggest, the biggest thing that that I've been hearing, and likewise, the curriculum is definitely the biggest concern for parents right now. And I think it's, it's justified. I mean, I had my worries. I have 2 daughters, currently in the district, 2 younger ones that will be in the district soon. And my girls are only 15 months apart. Obviously, kids, they learn at different paces and everything. Some may retain things better than, some students will retain things better than others and learn quicker. But I can definitely tell you that I think there's more than a 15-month gap in where they both stand. My older daughter, she got a little bit more of a foundation prior to COVID, the pandemic starting, and her reading, like her foundations for reading and for math are just like leaps and bounds, ahead of where my other daughter is. And it's conversations that I've had with my wife. We're both, it's a concern because I want to make sure that my younger daughter, gets the remediation that she needs and that she can get caught up so that it doesn't, compound and become a bigger problem down the road. It's definitely a legitimate, worry that parents have. And it's the first thing that I've heard from, I would say 90% of the parents that I've spoken to. So, obviously working to get that taken care of. And I think that would be the most important issue to resolve right now, and I've seen, some correspondence going back and forth about testing that's taking place. And I think that's fantastic. I think whatever we're doing right now, we got to take a look at it and see if it's working. Let's continue with it. If there's something we can do better, let's do it better. And, whatever the kids need, we gotta be there to support them. I mean, they're what it's all, it's all about them. That's it. That's how I'm in this race. I mean, I had never envisioned running for the Board of Education. I just, I got 4 kids and I just want to make sure that the right things are being done. And, curriculum is at the top of the list.
Awesome. Thank you, Aldo. Kathleen, Christina, you guys have anything to add? Different
Kathleen,
concerns.
You want to go, Kath, or? Yeah, it was basically everything that everyone said. The top comments and concerns of parents, whether it be outside of school, dance, gymnastics, baseball, it tends to trend towards the curriculum. What is being taught, what is not being taught. Obviously, you have the new buzzwords now with CRT, and that is on everybody's mind and conversations. And I think where that comes from is basically we as parents have so many concerns about where our children are in terms of reading and writing and math, and they can't spell. They're still spelling phonetically in 2nd grade. And that to me is what's going to define educational success. I believe that the extra curriculum that's being imposed by the state standards are slippery slopes. And I feel that any good teacher is teaching acceptance, is teaching kindness. That's something that I know every teacher has been doing since kindergarten. The kindness jar, I remember at the Early Learning Center. It's happening. So to give things a name and to start introducing, I know at the last board meeting, it was brought up by one of the parents about, the curriculum tending to discuss lesbian, gay in the schools as early as 3rd grade. And a lot of parents were concerned about that. And I believe Mr. Ballone, don't quote me, but he said something to the tune of, it's not going to be just in health, it's going to be sprinkled throughout reading and writing and in all of the subject areas. And it's really about, he said, using authors that are in that category. Well, it turns out that I know a couple of friends at some of the schools in Marlboro, their 3rd graders had a teacher introduce a text, like Mr. Ballone said, by a member of the GT community. And the children naturally asked what the acronym stood for. And so that then went into a conversation of what is lesbians, what are gays, what is sex, because one of the children said that gay people are men or women that have sex with each other. And that's a response from a child, a 3rd grader. So this is a conversation now that's being had at a dinner table with 4-year-olds and 5-year-olds. And you know what? The bottom line is it's a slippery slope. And that's something that should be left up, in my estimation, to parents to decide when they should be talking to their children about this content. It has nothing to do whether someone is a lesbian, a gay person, a straight. I don't want my children learning about sex, period. Any kinds of sex should not be taught in school. So I have the utmost respect for every single person in every group. I just feel that as a parent, I should have the right to decide when I want my 8-year-old to learn about those things. And I don't feel the school should have a right to go above a parent's head and start instructing on that slippery slope when we really have so many concerns with getting our kids to read on grade level and to be able to perform mathematical equations on grade level. I don't think we have the time right now to dive into any other extracurricular in content, in my opinion. And that is the forefront of every conversation currently that I am having with people that I'm canvassing or people that are friends in the community.
Thank you, Christina. Kathleen, any concerns that you're hearing that haven't been covered by the other three folks?
I mean, well, obviously curriculum, but somebody actually did text me today and wanted to know where I stood on, and I see it actually leads into the next question about the police officers in the school. I have nothing but respect for the police officers and the school resource officers who are in the buildings. I think they're a wonderful addition. I don't think they should be taken away. Unfortunately, we all know what the world we live in nowadays. I think they're there to protect our children, to protect our staff. I think it makes open lines of communication, to have a healthy dialogue, to have a good relationship with the police amongst the youth. So I'm all for the school resource officers and our police officers remaining in the school, protecting our children and our staff. I think it's a wonderful, wonderful addition.
And coming from New York, we don't have, like, we have school safety, but we don't have like the amount of safety that Marlboro schools have. When we moved here, I was super impressed with, even like at Abbott, we walk in, you're in like a locked off vestibule. Nobody's getting in unless you're showing your license, you're showing everything, you're getting scanned. Then you go to the next locked vestibule, you're speaking to the school safety officer. It's so safe, and you feel such comfort knowing that you have our men and women in blue protecting our babies, our most prized possessions. I feel that we have top security and safety in Marlboro schools. That's one thing that in any of the schools that I visited, that I see it's prevalent. So I'm not really sure what the concern is as in terms of safety, because I feel like we are a very safe district.
And just to quickly, the one comment I have, and then we can move on to other questions, is that I've been consistently attending Board of Education meetings for the last year and a half. And there's not been, from a resident, I know, attending those meetings, there has not been one conversation about removing or changing the security policy. So I'm not sure where that dialogue is coming from.
Yeah, I'm just going to chime in real quick, if you don't mind, Leo, too. Just because I had, it's been, it was actually brought up to me on social media earlier in the week, on my thoughts on it. And I don't know, I wasn't sure if maybe there was something I had missed in the Board of Ed meeting where it was indicated otherwise, that maybe the police, there was something discussed about maybe not having them going forward, but I don't think that would be the right move. I mean, I think, it gives me peace of mind knowing that, we have the officers in the building and that they're, that they're always there. It's definitely an awesome move. I think, I remember when it was first implemented, I remember reading the article that, had spoken about like the mayor's initiative to get this done. And I think it's fantastic. I think it's something that we need to, do everything we can to make sure that that stays in place if there is anything that's putting it in jeopardy, which I'm not aware of. But, definitely, it's awesome. I mean, knowing that when you're bringing your kids and you're dropping them off, they're getting on the bus, that when they're there, all like even what Christina touched on, like the locked vestibule and all that, but the whole everything Marlboro has done to keep the kids safe, I think is amazing. And I mean, this is coming, I'm a former first responder. I was a volunteer both, the Robertsville Fire Company, and when we had first got married and lived in Manalapan, I was on the Gordon's Corner Fire Company. I will always support the police and the first responders. I mean, they have, along with teachers, nurses, I mean, those are the backbone of our country. So absolutely.
Thank you guys for sharing that. So I will skip over Ashley's question because I think we have that pretty well covered. We have another question from Angie. She's asking whether there are any guidelines and policies that you would like to actually work on changing as a Board of Education member. Kathleen, go ahead.
I'm not sure the exact policy number, to be honest with you. I can go downstairs in the basement. I have them all written out, but it has to do with the, I've never been a fan of cutting people off mid-sentence. I think it's actually pretty rude to cut them off mid-thought. Again, back to Christina's point, if we were having 50 plus people signing in and wanting to speak, I could totally get having a 3-minute time where you speak as a public session. But when there's only, let's say, 10 to 15, I mean, I feel like it's my job to sit there and listen to the public. And if their thing goes on for 4 minutes and 20 seconds, then so be it. I that's my personal opinion. And again, I'm sorry, forgive me, I can't remember the policy number, but and again, it would have to be a caveat within the policy stating if there was X number of people, then it would have to be limited. But for the handful or 2 handfuls of people we get on the regular, I don't care for it.
Also, I'm not sure if it's a written policy or just a policy of the board president right now and the superintendent, is that when someone gets up to the podium and asks a question or provides a statement, is again, that response happens immediately instead of the end, because no one can keep up. And if it's a long meeting, people end up leaving. And it's, again, I feel like sometimes, and again, I don't know if this is a policy or just a unwritten policy, that the concern is that lack of transparency of having that back and forth discussion. I mean, that's the only way you're going to make things better within the school district, is to have that banter with the community.
Thank you. You guys know this is close to my heart, but I'm just a facilitator, so I'll stay out of it. So we have a few more questions coming in, but mostly from the same folks who've already asked questions before. I'm going to go through those questions, but for everybody who's joined later, I just want to reemphasize that if you guys want to ask a question, and I hope you all have some questions, use the chat button right here in Zoom. Type your questions right into chat. I pick them out from there, and I ask our candidates, our panelists, to discuss the questions. So just go ahead and type them right in down there. Next in the list again is Angie with a question about testing for our special education students. Do you guys as BOE candidates feel like there should be more or less testing for special education students to see what levels they're at throughout the school year instead of just during their IEP meetings? Who wants to take that first? Kathleen, go ahead.
Hi, Angie. I mean, I think you know my answer on this. I think at the very least, the amount of testing that is provided for our gen ed students should be given to our special ed students to see where they are. They are the most vulnerable population in this district. So to me personally, and I could speak personally because 3 of my 5 children were or are currently, have IEPs. So I know of what I speak. I think you need to get a baseline on those students sooner rather than later. This last year, and I know there, virtual learning was a success for many students, but for many students, and I could speak on this, my son did very poorly last year. He could not retain the information via the screen. He needs a multi-sensory approach, and on a screen is not multi-sensory. So it's, I think there should be, again, I'm not for testing just to test. Let me set the record straight. I think there should be, a baseline test to see where you are in the beginning of the year. Obviously, if September's too busy, by the latest mid-October, to see where your child is, and then go from there. I think it's very important. And for all children, but again, especially for those with IEPs, they are really the most vulnerable, and this past year was not kind to them. So if you guys want to chime in, or, that's just my personal, not even my board opinion, that's my parent opinion. So.
Yeah, I actually just wanted to really quickly reiterate the disclaimer we did at the beginning of the meeting, that all the opinions presented here today are the candidates' own opinions and do not reflect any boards that they may currently sit on. Just for the sake of folks who joined late, that's a disclaimer that covers the meeting. Christina, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, I just wanted to also, as a parent of a student with special needs, I feel that any child, regardless of their ability or disability, should be assessed, not just at an annual meeting for their IEP to run through the checklist of goals and what percentage of goals they need to meet, but the teacher, the parent should have a pulse on how they're measuring up in terms of those goals throughout the year. And like Kathleen said, nobody wants to assess children every second. If you can't assess kids every day, well, you can informally ask a question, or, pose a multiple choice. That's a different kind of assessment. But when I'm speaking of assessments, like as in a standardized test world, you can't do that every day and every week, but there should be benchmarks. And the special education population should be included in that as well. Just because they have those measurable goals on their IEPs, you can't wait until that year mark to assess that. It has to be ongoing.
Thank you very much, Christina. So next, switching gears a little bit, and we talked about this last time, but there's a question from Elliot about the extended contract for Dr. Hibbs that was a hot button issue around town. What is your opinion as candidates regarding that contract extension? Aldo, go ahead, unmute yourself.
Yeah, I'll take this one. I mean, I personally, I think Dr. Hibbs, his contract renewal was an eye-opening experience to me, just in seeing the way that the Board of Education operates, and how they are, they're elected to represent members of the community. And listen, my personal feeling on the contract renewal was that it wasn't the right time, being in a pandemic. And I know we were told that no superintendent waits till the last year unless they're planning to retire or leave, or and that's fine. But I don't think that these are normal. We're not living in normal times right now, and I just didn't think the time was correct. I feel like it should have been didn't have to be a no, but maybe, not right now. This isn't the correct moment for it. And that also being said, seeing the community and, their thoughts on it. And even at the meeting, that his contract was voted on. I think the public comments, leading up to it, I'd say that they were pretty split down the middle, being half for, half against. And I didn't think the voting, showed the same results. So I think it basically shed a spotlight for me on, there perhaps is, a part of the community that's not being represented the way they should be. That perhaps not, the entire community is not being represented the way they should be. I guess, listen, he's an employee of the district. Can't really fault the guy for asking for a raise, but at the same point, I seeing the way that the board, gave it to him in the voting, after the consideration, that they had given it and the public comment, it definitely opened up in my eyes. It made me, that was one of the issues that made me wonder, is this board really looking out for the students and the residents, first? Because, even the answer that the public was given as to, why, if I'm not mistaken, I believe at that meeting, they said that, it was, what I took of it was that it was essentially easier to extend the contract than to potentially, lose the superintendent and have to search for a new one. And I can understand that answer, but it doesn't, it seems like the easy way out, it does, okay, had we lost the superintendent because of it, it would have meant more work, but you know what, sometimes more work is necessary. I just don't think that I didn't think the community was represented equally, on that vote. And that was the first time that it really jumped out at me. But, it is what it is. And, at this point now, the contract is renewed. So we have the superintendent for, so many years. And I think that going forward, it's really, I would hope that the residents can just be represented a little more equally going forward. And, that their concerns are maybe taken into account a little more by the board. That was, that was really what the issue that stuck out to me about it, was really the way, the public comments and then the voting outcome was not nearly how I thought it would look, comparable. But that's pretty much, that's all I would have to say on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Aldo. All right, so switching gears again, there's a question from Diana, and it leads with a quote from something that was, I guess, in the newspapers today. So I'll read you guys the quote, and then I'll read Diana's question to you. The quote is, "The first project I will support is air conditioning in every classroom by allocating portions of the current budget freed through the completed roofing project." The question is, would this even be a possibility, since we were told it would be around 1.5 million per school? Deb, go ahead and take this one.
Hi, Diana. I think it's a great question. Obviously, with COVID and masking, AC is definitely back in the forefront. If you looked at the budget presentation from February of 2020 for the upcoming year, it was pretty much, we were losing over $1.1 million from the state. And as per the business administrator, it was a no-frills budget. What has come now into play is the ESSER funding, which I think we've gotten 2 full rounds and we're waiting for the 3rd round. And the 3rd round is approximately 1.5 million overall for the school district. I personally would love to see air conditioning in the schools, but it's not just throwing an AC unit in the school. There's a lot of other back end stuff that has to be done. All the electric has to be redone. I am not sure. I'm not sure if the Board of Education, obviously I'm not part of the board yet. Are they going out for quotes? But I think 1.5 million, which is the money we have extra, is not enough to cover AC in all of our schools.
Thank you, Deb. Anybody else have anything to add on that topic? I think that was pretty comprehensive. Let me go ahead and jump to, oh, there's 2 more questions here. I'm sorry. So there's a question from an unnamed user that I'm gonna skip over right now and go to a question from Nicole Nadel. The question is, currently special ed students in preschool with an IEP don't get a first parking period progress report. I apologize. Do you believe that the first time a parent should get a formal update is mid-February? How can we work to get a pulse on how little ones are doing before we are midway through the year? Christina, I see you want to take this one. Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Nicole, for your question. I had a similar concern when my son was at the ELC when he was 3.5 and had the IEP. And I did bring it up during one of my many meetings at the school with teachers because I wanted to know how well he was attaining his goals. And I didn't want to wait until that formal update or an IEP conference. And I was told that the district used to have progress reports I believe it was 3 to 4 a year, just like other students have, but they did away with them. So to me, if I was able to bring that back, that would be something that would be at the forefront, especially for our special education community, where we really need to know where our students are. And you're not in the classroom every day. And it's too much to expect a teacher to every day give you or every week give you feedback as to how your kid is doing in regards to their goals. So that's something to me that would be meaningful and is necessary to bridge that communication between parents and teachers in terms of their kids and how well they're doing. So I was also surprised that they didn't have it until February. It's a very long time to wait to get a progress report on your child's, but it's not at the teacher's level. It's happening district-wide. So that's what I was told at least 5 years ago. So I'm seeing now that the same is still ringing true. But I agree with you. It should be more frequently, at least 4 times a year, that you're getting a progress report from the teacher.
Thank you, Christina. Do any of the other candidates want to add something on this topic? All right, then let's go to the question that I skipped over. Again, I don't know the name of the person asking this question, but the question is, how important do you think it is for board members to be informed on what is going on at the state level? Would you be willing to attend State Board of Ed meetings, draft resolutions expressing the views of our parents? Anyone? Kathleen, go ahead.
I think it's really important that board members have their finger on the pulse of what's going on with the state. As far as drafting resolutions, that's a single board member cannot draft a resolution. That has to be a majority vote of the board, and then possibly it could happen. So one lone board member or 2 lone board members cannot draft a resolution. It's like making a promise to a parent as a board member. That is a no-no. That is against the rules. As board members, we can't promise anything to any constituent. So the drafting of resolutions expressing views, I mean, that's similar to what happened back in the August meeting when the board as a whole thought it was a good idea to give the governor a letter stating the results of the survey regarding masks. And that was forwarded to the governor. But for an individual or a small group to take it upon themselves, I'm going to say that would have to be passed through the board. So, but I think it's, forget about board members. I think parents in general should have their pulse of what's going on with the state regarding education. It's important.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Kathleen. So we don't actually have any new questions from the audience today. I encourage you guys to keep those questions coming. But I did want to maybe take some time to address some of the questions that came up previously that we didn't get to last time, but we saved for this meeting. So first question that I have here that we didn't yet cover today is, how regularly do you attend Board of Education meetings? So it probably makes sense for all 4 of you guys to respond to that.
Well, I'm at every Board of Ed meeting. So.
Yeah, I'll take this one too. So I prior to having kids in the school had never, been to a board meeting. I gotta be honest, it was something that was, I didn't really know what took place. I wasn't sure how they were, how they ran. And, I had never really, it never really occurred to me, how much I was missing until I did start attending them. But I would say I've been pretty regular, attended them regularly now. I would say at least from probably the beginning of the year, and prior to that, last year, I had attended a couple on the Zoom ones that I could, and then yeah, when I was back in town, I attended as many as I could. So I would say pretty much in the last 18 months has been my my experience at them. And I've had kids in the district about, well, my daughter's in second grade, so about 3 years. So yeah, about the second half of their tenure has been my experience with them. Um, but definitely a lot to learn. I learn a lot each time, and it's a great process that I love watching. So definitely continue. Thank you.
Deborah, go ahead.
Yes, I definitely have been attending consistently for the last 2 years, really since COVID hit. Prior to that, I used to travel a lot for work, and I would try and attempt to attend for the last 5 to 6 years. I think it's important for parents to show up. I think that's the way I became educated on what was going on in the schools versus hearsay, is attending the meetings. And it's been great. There's been more people attending. And I hope that if we're elected, we can encourage people to attend, to have a public forum to come to us and let us know how they're feeling, or ask us the questions as we represent them and the children of Marlboro.
And to be the final person to answer that question, when I was on the PTO, I attended here or there. I alternated with the president, but it wasn't until COVID hit that I started attending virtually. And because that was really when I think all parents really started to get a glimpse into what was going on. Not to say that the virtual learning was any indicator of what was going on in the classroom, because there's just no comparison. But that's when you're actually seeing what's happening with your child, how they're learning, what they're learning, and you start having concerns, and you want to get involved at the district level to kind of hear where the policies are coming from. And I started attending around that time virtually, and have been going now the last couple of months really religiously, because it really is, it's an experience that every community member should be part of. Really, you're listening to the thought process behind the decisions that are being made in regards to your children. And so, like Aldo said, it's a learning process as well. But serving on other boards that I've been on, it differs slightly in the way the board meeting is conducted in terms of other boards that I've been on. So it's interesting to compare and contrast.
Awesome. And I see Nicole following up directly on what you just said. Would you guys advocate to actually continue allowing virtual participation in the BOE meetings versus our current status? I don't know if you guys all know, but currently people can look at the meeting but can't participate virtually.
I thought that was a fantastic way to engage the community more. I mean, so many of us are working parents. You can't get a babysitter, and you don't know who's watching your kids, or your kids have extracurricular activities and you can't fit it in. It's really a nice way, an open, transparent way to engage the community. That's what this is about. We are for the community. We're representatives of the community. So why wouldn't you want to have as many community members involved?
Likewise, I mean, there's also, sorry, Deb, I didn't mean to cut you off. But yeah, I thought that the Zoom meetings were, they were great. Whether, if you're tied up running late at work, you can't get to the meeting, like, Christina said. Also, likewise, sometimes people aren't feeling well and they don't want to, risk getting anyone else sick. So they don't go. Anyone that's maybe like immune compromised and doesn't feel comfortable going to the meetings, but still wants their voice heard. I think it would be a great, I thought last year they were, I thought they were great to, be able to have remote access, not just to listen, but to also speak. And I think that's something that definitely should continue. If it was able to continue, I think it should. That was fantastic.
Deb, go ahead. I see you have your hand raised.
I think we all have the same sentiments. The bottom line is that if you have that Zoom option, if you look at how many people were joining via Zoom, it does give people the option to attend meetings. You know, there's a lot of parents that are too busy to get a babysitter and head over to the middle school.
Awesome. So, and I see one final question just came in from Elliot, referencing to something that was said earlier about the involvement of the board in day-to-day operation. The question is, what can you do as a BOE member to influence those day-to-day operations, since those primarily are the immediate concerns of the families in this community? Deborah, take a stab at that, please.
Well, I've been doing a lot of research on exactly what my role would be if I'm a Board of Education member. The only thing we can touch is ensuring that the policies that we approve are the best things for our children. Because if you look at the policies like curriculum, that's a day-to-day thing. We don't set the curriculum, we just approve it. Other policies, whether it's student budgets and stuff like that, but the questions that we're starting to receive a lot via email, Facebook, those are more day-to-day operations. It's sort of like, think of a corporation. You have the CEO and then you have the board. The board is not involved in the CEO or the corporation's day-to-day operations. Again, they're setting the policy, they're overseeing, they're the CEO's superiors. So it's hard to really get involved in those day-to-day operations. The only way we can touch or influence it is on the policies we either agree to or deny.
And I also think that it's about asking tough questions. We are the people that, if we are elected by the community. And even though we may not be able to be involved in the day-to-day, it doesn't say that we can't say our piece and give our opinion on whether we feel it's in the best interest of the community.
I'd also like to, if possible, just real quick, Leo, you know, just as far as the, you know, the board and the day-to-day operations, like, yeah, they, you know, we may not, if elected, we wouldn't, you know, have anything to do with the day-to-day operations. That would be the superintendent and, you know, the administrators doing their jobs. But I think that we would have a lot of influence in terms of accountability, which, you know, just making sure that the you know, the decisions that they're making and, you know, just making sure that everything really is in the best interests of the students and the residents and the taxpayers. And that's ultimately what had driven me to enter this election, was to, you know, just to make sure that the, you know, the choices being made by the board, so that, you know, the administrators can do their job, you know, that those choices, you know, that it really was being representative of the residents and the children first and foremost. So ultimately, I think that would have, you know, the biggest impact. It would be the accountability, just to make sure that everyone is really doing what they can, you know, everything they can for the children and the residents and taxpayers.
Thank you very much, Aldo. So with that, we're right at the top of the hour, so perfect timing. Thank you, everybody. We had some 20 people on here listening to this, only 4 or 5 who asked questions, but I trust the rest of you learned a lot about these candidates. This will be recorded and shared like it was last time. Please share it out further with other members of the community who would benefit from knowing what these candidates stand for. And thank you for attending tonight. Thank you, everybody, for your participation. And of course, thank you, candidates, for being open and being out there answering people's questions.
Thank you, Leo, too.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Leo, for, you know, for doing this. And also thank you, everyone, for, you know, for your support. It's really, you know, no idea what being in a campaign would be like, and you know, kind of learning as I go. But I just want to say thank you to, honestly, we've received a ton of support, and it is much appreciated. And Marlboro is an amazing community, and you know, really hope that we do get elected so that we can continue to, make it even better day by day. Thank you.
Thank you. Good night, guys.
And I have a great night, everyone.